In this video today, I'm looking at a game from World at War magazine number 67. It is called The Second Battle of Changsha, and this occurred in, I believe, September, October of 1941 in the Hunan province, and I believe Changsha was the capital. And so the Japanese really wanted to capture this city. Because it was kind of a hub and an entry point that was important to the Chinese KMT forces. This is an interesting game. I've forgotten who designed it, but it is 15 turns at somewhat of an operational scale. The units range from battalions, regiments, brigades, and things like that. The hexagons are like 3 kilometers. And that the turn is like 1 day or 2 days, depending, it's variable. So the map has a 15 turn track, but it doesn't really detail what day you're representing. So it depends if there's more activity or less activity. It may be 1 or 2 days. There are a lot of diverse units in the game, but a lot of it is just for flavor. However, there are headquarters units on both sides. They do have a command radius, and I believe the KMT is given a little bit bigger radius, a little bit more flexibility, as they're the defenders and they have interior lines. There are infantry battalions, cavalry brigades, artillery regiments, and there's engineer regiments, I believe mostly in the Japanese. And these actually have a special ability of negating river penalties when you're trying to cross in movement. There's marine regiments, mountain artillery battalions, there's tank battalions, and I believe this is for the Japanese, and they had probably type 95 and 97 tanks in this battle. However, when tanks are employed in a combat with infantry, you get a bonus. So there's some recognition of combined arms somewhat. There are supply battalions also, and the Japanese have a coastal flotilla, which can be used as a barrage. And I imagine these are mostly made up of, destroyers or something like that. The game has air support for the Japanese. They are assigned a number of air support markers that they draw randomly from the pool, and they could be fighters or bombers, and they can be used for support missions to give you column shifts in a combat, or they can be used for barrage missions in the barrage phase. So there's some flexibility. The KMT doesn't have any aircraft in this game, but they do have support markers that, well, the icon shows mortars, so they can be used, once per turn, to support activity of the KMT. The game uses activation markers, so you draw chits from a pool to activate formations, and it works fairly well in the system. There are zones of control, but they're not entirely sticky in the sense that it costs an extra movement point to enter a zone of control, and it costs an extra movement point to leave one. So the effects of the zone of control just reduce your movement points that you'll have available. The costs go up. There are lots of different terrain features in this game, and the terrain effects are cumulative. So there can be some really difficult areas to deal with. And the KMT also has some fortifications which are similar to a terrain effect, but they also have steps, so it may take a while to reduce them. So I'm going to take a look at some of the features of the game. I have a number of photographs from a playthrough that I've done on this game, and I will share those with you. So this first picture is really before the Japanese offensive really gets started. But what you see here is this is the 6th Infantry Division, and the Japanese are the tan units, and the KMT Chinese are the the blue-green type units. And the objective here for the Japanese is to get down and head in map proportions south and capture Changsha. And so the Chinese are going to try to stop this. You see a major obstacle here with this mountainous terrain, which is going to be difficult. And the Japanese have to get through that. They have a little corridor there where the Chinese are blocking the right-hand side. But on the left side of the picture, there's a lot of open area there, headed down to the Haijiang River near Chiangqi, which has an infantry regiment holding that bridgehead. This next picture is just a little bit closer look at the previous picture where I zoomed in a little bit. So we go to turn 1 in September of 1941, and here the Japanese 6th Infantry Division makes several attacks at the bridge across the Haijiang River. And you see that depicted here in the picture. The Japanese 6th Division is all in that area, and there's a fairly good defense here of the Chinese along the river. The Chinese 4th Corps is really set to defend as best it can along this river line and take advantages of the terrain. The Japanese 3rd Infantry Division does manage to capture the bridgehead at Xinjiang, and the 4th Infantry is poised also to assault that railroad bridge, but it doesn't achieve its objective. So you can see that in the picture here, where the 6th Division has a bridgehead, the 3rd Division has a bridgehead, but the 4th Division is kind of stopped along that railroad on the left side of the picture. On turn 2, we see in this next picture, picture 31, that the Japanese army have crossed the Haijiang River in force, and the Chinese formations are trying to fall back somewhat. However, on the right side of the picture, you have the Chinese 20th Corps moving in against the Japanese left flank. You can see by looking at it, the 20th Corps is relatively weak. However, I'm hoping that I can use it as the Chinese to divert some of the Japanese attacking forces to kind of manage this threat. Going on to turn 3, the Japanese are continuing to pound away at this first major river crossing, and the Chinese are trying to hold these crossings as long as possible. You can see the 133 of the 20th Corps is managing to hold that crossing on the right-hand side of the picture. Also on the left-hand side of the picture on the railroad, there is a disrupted Chinese unit that is still being somewhat of a thorn in the side of the Japanese. The 4th Corps is falling back to more defensive positions. They're not really shown here in the picture. Actually, they are. I have them in picture 33 here. They're falling back to the Milo River, and they're going to set up some defensive positions here along the river to try to hold these bridges, the railroad there as well. And the 20th Corps is continuing to arrive from the east, and it is holding out at Yanglin Chia, and this is threatening the Japanese flank and their supply lines. So I'm good on the Chinese for doing this.